you could go back in time and play with any footballer in the history of the game, who would it be?
Eusébio is one of the symbol of Portugal, and I wish to play against him because he's a Portuguese, and he was like an unbelievable person.
I thought, what a fantastic player, so fast, and had this desire when he got near the box. He had to finish it off with a shot.
In 1960, a teenager from Mozambique boarded a plane to Lisbon. His name was Eusebio da Silva Ferreira, and he would go on to become one of the world's greatest ever footballers. But his story tells us far more than just a story about sport. It's also a story about empire, colonial extraction, and the complicated question of where we really come from. So, come with me to explore the legacy of the Black Panther, the Black Pearl, Eusebio da Silva Ferreira, the King. Born in 1942 in Lourenço Marques, Mozambique, to a white Angolan father and a black Mozambican mother, Eusebio grew up in poverty. He joined Sporting Club de Lourenço Marques, a feeder club to Sporting Lisbon. Salazar's Portugal treated its colonies as overseas provinces, claiming subjects as citizens but denying equality. Most Africans were classified as indigenous, second class, without rights. Eusebio could play for Portugal, but his Mozambican identity was erased. Legally Portuguese, socially African, politically voiceless. Just as Portugal extracted gold and cotton, it also extracted talent. Word of Eusebio's brilliance soon spread. He was the prototype of a 21st century striker, a superb athlete who ran 100 meters in 11 seconds at the age of 16. Explosively fast, powerful in the air, lethal in front of goal, and a gentleman on the pitch. He was the complete package. It seemed inevitable he would play for Sporting, but fate intervened in a Lisbon barbershop. Brazilian coach Jose Carlos Bauer told his friend, Benfica manager Gutman, about a young prodigy he'd seen in Mozambique. Gutman then flew to the East African country immediately and signed Eusebio on the spot. Sporting tried to change the young man's mind with 500,000 escudos, but he refused. Upon arrival in Portugal, Benfica hid him under lock, key and guard in a remote fishing village in the Algarve for 12 days, whilst lawyers fought over his contract. Like the colonies and their bounty, Eusebio was tightly controlled, a human commodity of empire. In 1961, after 6 months of legal wrangling, Eusebio was finally cleared to play. Gutman declared, "The boy is gold." He scored 3 goals on his debut and then went on to score 3 more off the bench against Pelé Santos. L'Equipe ran the headline, Eusebio 3, Pelé 2. The world had its new star. For Benfica, he was the crown jewel of their golden era. For Salazar's regime, proof of a multiracial Portugal. For Mozambique, a story of loss, made in the colonies, claimed by Lisbon. born African, legally Portuguese, famous internationally. A perfect fiction of empire.
Eusebio's move was more than a transfer. It was empire in miniature. A teenager spirited across continents, hidden, branded and celebrated as Portuguese greatness. A boy of the colonies but never allowed to be African. A Mozambican, but only if he forgot Mozambique. His arrival lit the fuse for Benfica's golden age, a story that unfolds in the next episode.
With an African backbone, they conquered Europe. With an African prodigy, they conquered it again. Then came the curse that would haunt them for 100 years. But first, some important historical context. Salazar's regime, the longest lasting dictatorship in European history, was found and sustained by the 3 Fs: Fado, Fatima, and football. Each told the story of his Estado Novo, or new state.
Fado music, mournful and inward-looking, thrived in isolation, untouched by foreign influence. Fatima, the vision of 3 peasant children turned into a national cult, embodied the regime's deferential Catholicism. And football, where there was no Fatima or Fado, served as a sedative, a release valve for the people, not a showcase for imperial superiority.
This wasn't Mussolini's theatre of conquest, nor Hitler's vision of grandeur. Salazar's creed was autocry, inward focus, self-sufficient, and only glacial change. Public schools went underfunded deliberately, and the rural poor were deliberately kept illiterate, as Salazar argued that ignorance was a structural guarantor of social stability and deference. The secret police were ever present. Elections were at best hollow.
Yet despite this insular outlook, creeping modernity seeped in. Emigrants, tourists and returning workers carrying new ideas home. And from Africa came the labour, resources and footballing talent that lifted the Portuguese game to new heights. Benfica, Porto and Sporting thrived, even as those same forces began to erode Salazar's carefully built isolation.
And in this shifting historical context, one club rose above all others. Right, back to the footy.
Benfica emerged as Portugal's most popular and best resourced club under President Mauricio Vieira de Brito, a wealthy coffee planter with ambition to match. He hired Bela Gutman, fresh from winning the league with Porto, who revolutionised training and brought Hungarian tactical innovation. De Brito's investment meant players could turn professional, training full-time.
And crucially, African talent became central. From the early 1950s, players had arrived from Angola, Mozambique, and across the empire.
Miguel Arcanjo went to Porto, Matateo to Belenenses, Hilario to Sporting. But Benfica built a steady, transformative pipeline. Jose Aguas, Costa Pereira, Joaquim Santana, and the captain, Mario Coluna from Mozambique, became the team's heartbeat and gave Benfica the edge to dominate Europe.
And by 1961, all of the pieces were in place for Benfica to challenge Europe's best.
In 1961, Benfica's European adventure peaked. Averaging nearly 3 goals a game, they reached the final in Bern against Barcelona. From 1-0 down, Aguas equalised. A Catalan own goal turned the tide. Colonial struck to make it 3-1. Barcelona rattled the post and the bar and the post again, but the Portuguese held firm. The continent had a new power. Benfica, champions of Europe.
The next year, a prodigy arrived on the world stage. Eusebio, the Mozambican forward, lit up Amsterdam in the 1962 European Cup final against Madrid.
Puskás scored a hat-trick to put Madrid ahead.
He rarely misses, and he doesn't miss. By a goal already. Puskás is going to try again. Puskás will score again. There is Puskás again. 3 out of 3.
But Eusebio roared back. First, a penalty.
It is Eusebio.
Then, a blistering solo run and strike.
For Eusebio. Crack goal! Number 5. 2 for Eusebio in 3 minutes. And Benfica are running away.
Benfica 5, Real Madrid 3, a dethroning of the old guard. Di Stefano and Eusebio swapped shirts, a symbolic passing of the torch to Europe's new superstar.
For Salazar's Portugal, the result was the ultimate prize. The colonies delivered. Lisbon ruled the world. A dictatorship basked in borrowed glory.
But the celebrations hid a fracture. Coach Gutman denied a pay rise, walked out of Benfica.
When he left, he declared that not for 100 years would Benfica be European champions. Gutman's curse, as it came to be known, hung over the club and everything that followed. They reached the cup final in Wembley in 1963. They lost. They reached the cup final again in 1965 in Milan. They lost. And when they reached their third and final of the decade, back at Wembley once again, they lost for the third and final time.
In 1968, Eusebio even applauded Man United's goalkeeper Stepney for a save, a gesture of dignity that symbolised both his greatness and his frustration. For Salazar, domestic triumphs became a convenient distraction. European defeats could be spun away, but league and cup wins were paraded as proof that his Portugal was strong, united, enduring. Later generations would suffer the same fate. In 1990, on the eve of another final in Vienna, Eusebio, the king himself, visited Gutman's grave to pray for the curse to be lifted. Benfica still lost. Yet, even under that shadow, the 1960s were Benfica's era. With Eusebio, they dominated at home. 8 league titles in the decade, and across his career, 11 championships, and a total of 22 major honours. Ballon d'Or winner in 1965, Benfica's all-time top goalscorer, and one of the greatest forwards in Europe's pre-Champions League age. For Salazar's Estado Novo, Eusebio was the smiling face of a multicultural empire, an African star in a Portuguese shirt, proof, the regime claimed, of harmony between colony and metropole. But for the people, he was more than propaganda. He was joy, brilliance, and a symbol that greatness could come from anywhere. A golden age shaped by African talent, domestic ambition, and unforgettable European nights. Sporting added their own European success in winning the 1964 Cup Winners' Cup, proof of a rising national standard. Together, Benfica and Sporting supplied the backbone of Portugal's 1966 World Cup squad, a team that came within touching distance of glory. Something we'll explore in the next. By the time Portugal arrived at the 1966 World Cup, the truth is this: the country was already breaking apart. Football was surging. Benfica were the best team in Europe, Eusebio the most electrifying player on earth. But the nation behind him was cracking at the foundations. Portugal wasn't just defending corners in 1966, it was defending its empire. From 1961 onwards, Lisbon was fighting 3 simultaneous colonial wars in Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and Mozambique. Young Portuguese men were being drafted and shipped thousands of miles away. African liberation movements were rising, and Salazar was running out of answers. This was the hidden backdrop of 1966. While Eusebio was taking on North Korea and England, other Mozambicans, people from his homeland, were fighting and dying for independence. And the regime didn't want anyone to look too closely at that. Salazar's Portugal survived on ritual, Fatima for obedience, Fado for sadness, football for distraction. The 3 Fs, the trio that Estado Novo relied on to keep the country still, suspended, asleep. Football was the brightest of the 3. And in Eusebio, a black man from a colony, the regime found its perfect ornament. A symbol that Portugal claimed proved its empire worked. That its African subjects were Portuguese. That Lisbon and Lourenço Marques were one and the same. But like all ornaments, he was never meant to change the room, only to decorate it. The 1966 was treated almost like theatre. Portugal's battles, the poverty, the censorship, the secret police, the colonial wars, all pushed off stage. In their place, a heroic team. A miracle comeback against North Korea and the image of Eusebio, smiling, scoring, saluting the crowd. But history always forces its way back in. Within 8 years, the empire fell, the wars ended, the regime collapsed. And the revolution that swept through the streets of Lisbon in 1974 revealed what 1966 had disguised: a country fighting to stay still, even as the world moved on without it. Eusebio was many things: a genius, a hero, a bridge between continents. But in 1966, he was also something else. A man used as the bright, brilliant face of a fading empire. A symbol of glory, masking a state at war with history itself. And that is the story behind Portugal's greatest ever summer. Not just footballing triumph, but the ornament of a collapsing world. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.